Steve Durham. I'm here at Hard Rock Hotel in Hollywood, Florida for a drum kit rundown with Modern Drummer magazine. Where should we start? So I play Gretsch drums. I'm playing a USA Custom. I've gone for big sizes this year. So I'm playing a 26-inch kick, 14 by 10 rack, 16 by 16 and 18 by 16 floor toms. I'm using a Gretsch bell brass 14 by 6.5-inch snare. And then on this side I have a lower sounding snare, and I usually play a 14 by 8 maple snare drum. I've got this great maple drum back home in the UK. This is my American kit, and I wanted to try something different, so I got a 14 by 8 hammered steel this time, just to try something a bit different. And then I am using rototoms 8 and 10 here. One song that Louis Tomlinson plays on this tour has a kind of like dance groove with some almost like kind of like timbale style parts that I play on this. There's 2 different pitches, so I kind of wanted some rototoms from Phil Collins era, you know, a nod to Phil Collins. And then cymbals, I play Zildjian cymbals. Zildjian have been very kind to me. I am playing, let's start with hi-hats. I'm playing 15-inch K light hats. I've always loved slightly bigger hi-hats, be it 15s or 16s. When you're kind of like playing open, slushy hats, it always sounds really cool when they're slightly bigger, so I've always loved that. I'm playing a 19-inch Karope over here, which I kind of use for like just softer hits, softer stuff usually. I normally play a 20-inch thin crash here, but I just broke it. And Zildjian very kindly sent out another one, which I think is going to arrive by tonight's show, hopefully. So at the moment, I've got a 19-inch medium thin here, but normally a 20-inch thin. And the 20-inch thin that's probably my favorite cymbal at the moment on this rig, I think. It's just something about it I really love. In terms of ride cymbals, I'm using 2. I'm using this 24-inch K light. I kind of use that for much washier, crashier, heavy-hitting songs in the set. And then I'm using a 22 K Custom dark ride for the more intricate stuff, more sort of like tip of the stick kind of ride playing, whereas this one's just like arms behind my head, all out playing. And then over here, I've got a 20-inch K dark thin crash. But yeah, I kind of use these 2 20s all the time. I love them. Electronics, I'm using Roland, 1 Roland pad either side, and then I've got a KT10 kick pad down here to the right of my kick drum pedal. I just swap between those for different sounds. We've got one song which has got like a sort of heartbeat kick drum in it. And then there's another one where I'm playing like a big sort of open, kind of like a circus, just kind of playing that and a shaker and tambourine. With the tambourine, I always get frustrated when I'm listening back at front of house, how tambourines sound through the overheads. If you're playing like a song with tambourine as your backbeat and there's no snare, it never quite kind of works for me. So I took this exact tambourine, mic'd it up with a 414 mic, and just did a load of different samples with my hand. You get slightly less attack if you're playing it with your hand versus a stick. And then I loaded it into my drum brain, which is over here. So the trigger, the same as you'd have a trigger on a drum, the trigger on the tambourine just plays the sound of that tambourine, but with a little bit of reverb on it. So it sounds a bit nicer at front of house. And then they kind of blend the sound of the 2. Obviously the tambourine's still mic'd up here. In terms of drum brains, I'm using the Roland TM6 Pro. We have 2 here, as one's just a backup, one's a fail-safe. So if for any reason this A brain goes wrong, I can just hit this button, or Josh Gale, my drum tech, he can hit this button and it will switch to B. In terms of changing banks, changing patches between songs, that kind of thing, it's actually all automated. So I use an iPad here, which has got all the different song names in the set. Josh very kindly updates this for me if we change the set each night. And this communicates with two laptops off at the side of the stage, which run backing tracks, and they also send program changes to the TM6 so that we're on the right patch for different songs. That also means that I can change without having to like come over here and hit the button to change in the middle of the song. The patch changes are automated within the song, so you can have lots of different samples within the same song. So the song Bigger Than Me has like a really big 80s sounding snare hit on the chorus, but then when I go to the verse, I might be playing kind of like just the pads and then the snare, and I don't want that big 80s sound to come through, so it automatically switches it on and off. This guy over here, which is made by Korg, it's a Korg pad control. They actually don't make them anymore, but I just really love the simplicity of them, so I keep going on eBay, and every time I see one on eBay, I just buy another one so that we've got like, because they're not necessarily made for the road. So this is just on a Roland stand that you'd normally have your SPDS on or whatever. And I have like glitch samples and like chopped up vocal samples and things like that I play in the show in between, in the kind of like transitions between the songs. I like doing all of that kind of stuff. Sometimes use the Chaos pad, send things to delays, that kind of stuff. So it's just something fun. I have a wireless pack that I have on my belt pack when I walk out, so I can hear the start of the show. We have like screens and a big intro to the show. And then as soon as I sit down, I switch to this hardwire pack. I kind of always, sorry, I'm facing the wrong way, always feel like more like safe and secure with a hardwire pack. And these Albatross packs, they sound amazing as well. Everything is like much more open sounding compared to like a wireless pack where things can get a bit squashed. In terms of hardware, I'm using DW. I've got DW 9000 hi-hat, just the one with two legs, and also DW 9000 kick pedal, and all DW hardware. I love the dog bones that DW brought out. I kind of try and use those. In the UK, they're quite hard to get hold of, but they're great. And then like this here is like the upper part of a dog bone that I added to a stand instead, so that we could get like a really sturdy tambourine setup. I tend to find things on like ball in socket joints for tambourines. It just dips down straight away. So that kind of is rock solid and doesn't move. I'm endorsed by Veta, and I'm currently using the Veta Power 3A sticks. Josh very kindly like rubs these down a little bit because I find they kind of like go off and hit somebody in the face if I'm not careful. So he's been rubbing these down a little bit to make them the grip slightly better for me on these. Ever so slightly longer, being a power stick, they kind of taper off a bit more abruptly down the end of the stick, which I kind of like. It's just, especially playing big drums, just that little bit longer length of stick is great for me. Oh, I've got one song where I do this drum solo, and I'm kind of swiping with my right hand between right and left, and I tend to find that was the point where I was dropping sticks more than ever. So I swap to these. I've never been a guy that would use tape on sticks. It's not really my bag, but it was the only way we could seem to stop me from dropping sticks in this one bit. So that's what they're there for, just that one bit of one song, and then I just switch straight back. With my stool, I'm using a Porter and Davies stool, which has a speaker on the inside. It's got a 150 watt speaker, and then underneath the TM6 here, we've got my big green amplifier, which I send the kick drum into the stool, and then I can kind of feel this great big 26-inch kick drum through the stool when I'm playing. We also have subs under my riser as well for the kick drum. so that I can like really feel the kick drum, you know, with both. And we just send like a few things to it. So we send the kick, a little bit of keyboards for the keyboard player under his, and it just means we get like full pelt of kick drum with what you need, you know. So
I see you have 2 talkbacks.
yes, nobody really wants to hear me sing, so it is just a talkback, and I use 2 buttons. So if I say I need more hi-hat in my in-ear mix, I'll speak to the crew with this button, just using this exactly the same microphone. It's just split with both buttons. And then this one is for if I want to speak to Louis and the band and also the crew, then I'll use this button here. I've also got triggers on both snares. This guy tends to be more, actually in Bigger Than Me, there's like a great big 80s sounding snare drum that you're not really going to be able to replicate with, in my opinion, with just an acoustic drum in a room like this. So you get that really sort of crunchy, long sounding 80s snare, kind of like a gated, almost like a gated sound. But yeah, that sounds great. And then on this one, I have this snare tuned quite low, and I've always loved the sound of Lynn snare drum samples. So I've got a Lynn sample on this for one of the songs towards the end of the set, where it's just like big, low, kind of swampy snare sound, and then it's backed up with the Lynn sample. Josh very kindly like listens to the Lynn sample and makes sure the snare and the Lynn are at the same pitch every night, so that everything's like works in tandem. You don't have like a really high or a snare drum at one pitch and then a sample at another pitch, because you just kind of get a bit of a mush between the 2 sounds. So we kind of make sure it always sounds the same every night. My main snare, on last year's tour, I was using chrome over brass, a Gretsch chrome over brass, 14 by 6.5, and I love these snares. I've got a few of these for touring, but this year I just wanted to try out the bell brass, and now I've kind of fallen in love with that. So that's become my main snare, and then we only ordered 1 for each rig because we weren't sure if it was going to be the right thing. So I think I'm probably going to need to get another one of those. But in the meantime, I've got my chrome over brass as my B snare, which I still love. And again, they're set to the same pitch every night. So if we have any, I did break a bottom head a couple of weeks back, so we swapped out quite quickly, which is when we use like the talk back. I'll just, if there's a break in the song or something, I'll just shout down the talk back to Josh, and then he'll come and help me swap it out. When we're on the road, I tend to have like a big trunk on wheels with all the drums fit in the trunk. But often when I'm not doing that, I'll have everything in soft cases. So if I'm just doing a gig in town, or we're in rehearsals and there's not much space or something like that, then I'll use Protection Racket soft cases, which is a British company, a guy called Dino over in Cornwall. Makes these amazing little cases. And they also make these drum rugs, drum mats, Protection Racket drum mats, and this is the bigger one, so it's actually hanging over the end on this riser, but I can fit my big crazy drum kit on this mat. And then they do these kind of as an add-on, they do these little Velcro circles where you can mark up with a number where each thing lives, save you running out of gaffer tape and doing it that way. It kind of looks much slicker as well. So they're really cool. So yeah, shout out to Dino over in Cornwall. So in terms of drum heads, I'm using Remo heads. On both of my snares, I'm using a Remo Powerstroke P77 coated snare. We kind of need something that's durable as well as still quite not too choked. I've tried a few other brands. The thicker heads were a bit dull and kind of choked the drum. This is the one where I've kind of found you still get that crack, but get quite a strong fundamental note out of the drum, which is great. It kind of gives you a little bit more, so you can kind of control it and even back it off a little bit if you need to. So I love this head, so I've got this on both snares. Again, playing quite hard, I play pinstripes on the toms. It depends what I'm doing. If I'm in the studio, I might use like coated emperors or something like that, but for kind of durability on the road and that kind of classic rock sound, Pinstripes is what I'm always gone for on the tops. At the moment, I'm using clear Emperors on the bottom. And then I'm kind of using these different moon gels and different things. There's these new ones that have come out. Evans have brought out these ones, bigger ones that are quite cool. 26-inch kick. I'm playing a Remo Power Stroke P3 clear, typical like snare side clear heads on the bottom of the snares. On the rotor toms, I'm using Pinstripes again. I did try out the dots and things like that, but again, found that Pinstripes across the board was exactly what I needed for the Louis Tomlinson gig. I started playing drums when I was 8. I was kind of influenced by my dad's eclectic taste in music. He used to put he'd put a record on, and he and I would just sit in front of the speakers and just listen to all these, you know, whether it's like Led Zeppelin or The Who or all the obvious like great rock greats. And then they saved up, and then they finally bought a jukebox, and we had a jukebox in our living room in our house, and they used to change once a week, change all the records. So that's kind of how I got into music. I didn't have like musicians in my family or anything like that. They just had so many records that I just got to listen to lots of different styles of music. And then I started playing when I was 8. Started gigging when I was like 12, shows around the area, and my dad would take me to the pub and sneak me into the pub when I was 9, and we'd go and watch bands, and I would like hide behind the, you know, like fruit machine that you used to have in a pub, or like gambling machine. I used to hide behind that and watch the local bands play at the age of 9, and then I have to get up for school the next day. So that was cool. So that kind of got me into all the obvious early rock stuff. Started touring properly when I was like 14 or 15 in different local bands. Went to Drum Tech, a school in London that no longer exists anymore actually, but it was a small drum and percussion school in West London. And I studied there for 4 years, did a diploma and a degree in drumming, and then just went on the road and kind of toured with whoever I could, but kind of like learned all this programming and production stuff along the way. And then when it came to like doing my first session gig, I realized I kind of could do all these other things, and the other people that were in the room didn't necessarily know how we should like proceed with putting the show together. So I just kind of did it. And then I learned after a while that was called a musical director, and I didn't really know. So kind of my first session gig, I was this thing called a musical director, and I didn't know what it was. And I kind of just went from there. And most of the gigs I've done, I've ended up being the musical director and the drummer, arranging their show, putting the backing tracks together, triggers, like sounds, all that kind of stuff. I'm definitely kind of as much of a nerd in that world as I am in the drumming world. What I love about the Louis Tomlinson tour is I get to kind of do both of those things. Get to play drums, play big sizes, play nice and loud, but I also get to do like all the creative stuff, building the show with Louis, which is, yeah, that's what I love.